Hey everyone, welcome. Really great to have you all here. I'm Nicole. I lead the marketing team here at Useberry. Today we're diving into something super exciting, how you can go from designing to testing to validating ideas in just 60 minutes with Claude and Useberry. This session is going to be a bit different. It's not just theory, it's a real workflow, something that has been actually used in a real product context. So you'll get to see how this all works in practice. And for this, I'm really happy to have Mohammed with us. Mohammed is a product designer at HRS in Berlin, working on complex B2B SaaS products. And what's really interesting is that he's been experimenting with end to end AI design workflows using Claude Code. So, not just generating ideas, but actually automating parts of the process, including user testing and applying that directly to real product work. And yeah, that's exactly what he'll be walking us through today. So before we jump in, here's a quick look at what we'll cover. We'll start with the problem, what wasn't working, and why it needed fixing. Then Mohammed will walk through how he used Claude to turn feedback into structured ideas and design options. From there, we'll move into testing with Useberry, how the test was set up, run, and validated with users. Then we'll look at the insights and how those led to iteration. And finally, the outcome, what changed, and what teams can actually take away from this. So, with that, I'll hand it over to Mohammed. Maybe, yeah, you could start with a quick intro and then walk us through the workflow.
Yes, thank you so much for the introduction, Nicole. Happy to be here and happy to show this exciting new chapter for designers everywhere using AI. So, yes, I basically work at HRS, and my focus at the moment is basically creating very complex dashboards and very complex workflows that connect with our core strategy, which is hotels, and making that work for different suppliers, different stakeholders, and so on. And this presented the opportunity for me to basically um, jump in and try to simplify this complexity using the new tools that we have available for us, like Claude, and basically utilizing that and making sure that we are able to also rapidly test iterations faster than before, and making sure also we increase our quality in the design work. So yeah, basically today what I'm going to be showing you, as Nicole said, is a real workflow running using Claude and using Useberry to showcase how we can leverage these tools into getting as much feedback as possible and as we can, so that we can create the best solutions for any product that we're building. Right. So with that being said, let me then get started. Perfect. So for that, I will start sharing my screen so that you can also see what I am working with. Right. Okay. Yep, here we go. Right. So we're going to start with a very blank Cloud Code canvas, right? Let me zoom this a little bit so that it's clear on the recording. Right. So for this specific demo, I pre-prepared a few things just to showcase how things are working. I pre-prepared the prompts. Um, I took some screenshots of the older product, and also I already connected Claude to our design system, connected Claude to Figma, and connected Claude to Chrome. So these are prerequisites, basically, that I assume every designer at this moment have set up in order to make Claude work properly with their design and with their environment. So yeah, starting with a blank canvas with Claude, um, I'm gonna showcase first of all what the first prompt is. So let me just show you quickly what it is. I'm basically asking it to work in a specific folder, and I'm giving it the role, and I'm giving it why do I need it. So I need its help to redesign a problematic page we have called the communication emails, right? I am also telling it that I have a few screenshots of the older product or the current product, and I'm describing a little bit why, what those screenshots are. And I'm also chugging in basically any feedback. And the beauty about Claude is you can just throw everything at it. If you have tickets, like customer support tickets, right? People complaining about certain things. If you have certain usability tests that you've already done before, or if you have feedback directly from the clients, you can just throw all of that into Claude. For the purpose of the demo, I basically brought everything here into this prompt. I'm telling it, yeah, hotel operation managers are complaining because they cannot schedule contacts, they cannot save stuff, they can't add new emails. It's hard to use. They don't understand what certain things in the design is, and so on. And I also gave it a few sort of feedback from the stakeholders, like the actual clients that will be deploying this product to their customers, and also giving it like examples of those. Of this feedback basically, and I'm asking it to basically to do as a first step, analyze the screenshots, do a UX audit and see what's broken or confusing, and create a PRD. So this is important, and this is basically the direction that Claude will be using, right? Creating a PRD and then proposing three different design approaches. Before I quickly give it that, I want to also just very, very briefly show you like what we're working with in terms of the product itself, right? So this is the older communication emails. You can see there's an email, some information, and you can press edit here to edit the email. There isn't a very clear entry point to how to add a new email, and also it's not very well structured, right? When I click on this edit, it opens up like a certain window above it, above that table, where I can edit then that email. It's also not very clear, not very standard UX behavior. And I also don't understand, like, is it editing right now this email, or is it basically creating a new email? So you can see some of the usability issues. And when I select an email, it basically pre-fills it in the email address input field. And also like it's not very clear. And also there are some terms like not work or daily booking line, very vague terms, right? From a UX copy perspective. And also it's not very clear like what is the delete and add do exactly. um, so yeah, basically the user can like do a bunch of things on this page, and they also have to save when they add new something. So if they didn't save and they switch to a new tab, then nothing happened, right? These are the this is the product that we're going to be giving to Claude. So let me then copy the prompt and switch to Claude and allow it to understand the context we're having, and also okay, it cut the thing. Right, and also start basically creating that PRD. I also have Claude on bypass permissions, so I needed to not stop me at everything. And I also made sure that I selected the proper folder for it to work in. Right, and here we go, getting started. So what's basically going to happen now is Claude is going to open up the screenshots in the folder, right, and start understanding what is going on and start analyzing every single detail. And we should be able to see here um, how it's doing that. So yeah, here it is. It's basically opening up the screenshots, analyzing them, understanding everything, and then it will start creating the PRD. I also, in the prompt itself, asked it to kind of do this a little bit faster for the demo. But I highly recommend when you are working with Claude, you be very insistent on a few things. You can basically ask Claude to take a second look, third look, fourth look at everything, so that it basically, when it is creating the solutions for you, it fully understands everything, because it can also rush things, and it has a habit of rushing certain solutions and so on. So yeah, basically right now it is going through that, and once it's ready, it should have a PRD ready for us, and we can go through it and see if we want to edit anything. And then in the next step, I will ask it to create the three solutions that should hopefully be different enough so that we can continue with the Useberry test. With that being said, let's wait until Claude is done schlepping and meandering and doing hard yaka, and get back to it once it's done. All right. Here we go. Now it's done. It came back with like a lot of extensive details. I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but basically it did exactly what I asked it to do. It did the UX audit, right? And it identified critical bugs. It identified information architecture problems with the design. It identified interaction design problems, and it also started creating the PRD. So it has the problem statement ready, it has the types of users, the key context, their tech comfort level, the success criteria. How do we make sure that this solution is actually successful? And started to write the core functional requirements, right? And the design constraints and the three design approaches. So this is the part that I will be taking forward, and I will be making sure that it follows this. So it came up with the first solution, inline row editing, and this it also came up with like pros and cons for the solution. And the second solution is a side panel, also pros and cons. And the third solution is card-based contact list. During a normal workflow, I would reread all of this and make sure that maybe it got something wrong. Go back to it and ask it, yeah, but the second solution maybe is not touching this part, etc. Work with it basically. But yeah, for this demo, we are good to go with whatever it came up with, right? So the second step, and let me bring it in focus here and talk a little bit more about it, right? Okay, I ask it now, nice, you have three solutions. Please build three prototypes. This is for the demo, build fast. Uh, Basically, write the code, save the files, and move on. And I will ask it also to deploy those three versions to Versal. And Versal, for those who are not very familiar with it, and I was not also familiar with it before this whole new AI workflow thing came up, because I was mostly a zero code designers. But Versal is a hosting server or a hosting platform where you can basically host your entire website there. But they also give you some functionality to host some demo and preview pages for free. So basically, you can take those links and put them into Useberry, where you would have put the Figma links before, and basically Useberry is going to be able to read them as regular web pages, and be able to proceed with that test. So I ask it to create three separate HTMLs for each approach and then deploy them all to Versal. And once live in Versal, I will basically then ask it to create the Useberry test. So let me copy the second prompt and put it here. Right. To recap the second step, right now, Claude has identified the problems, created a PRD to follow, and created like three design ideas, right? And this second step is basically asking it to develop those three ideas into a functional front end. This is a step where designers I would say before the last 3 months, honestly, would go to Figma and start creating the designs by hand, step by step, and start wiring up the prototype and hoping for the best, right? And then taking those prototypes and giving them to Useberry to do the testing. Those prototypes were kind of limited. Of course, we're all familiar with certain limitations that Figma had with the prototyping tools it had. For example, I couldn't write stuff into fields. It would take me so much time to wire up things and create like certain use cases and certain flows, right, to test. And it kind of limited a little bit the ability to test and get good feedback from participants, because um, certain things were not clickable, or certain elements were not showing up. So what Claude can basically do is take that to the next level. And as we can see, it's already started working with the first variant, and create like functional prototypes that we can use in Useberry. And this would dramatically improve the result quality that we're getting, because the panelists basically would be able to interact with it like a normal website, right? Okay, so as we can see now, Claude basically started coding the first variant. In this small window, unfortunately, the preview is a little bit broken. But basically, if you have a bigger screen, you can just basically preview whatever Claude is doing on the right here and whatever is typing on the left. But luckily, I already have access to the folder that is working in, and I can open the first variant and see what is it doing. Okay, yeah, here it is. And while I'm checking the first variant to check if actually it kind of followed what I did. It's creating the other two variants. So let's see what it did here. It basically created like a much cleaner layout, of course, and followed our design system a little bit. Of course, at this moment, I could also iterate a little bit more, tell it, yeah, these tags are not exactly like our design system, etc., and go back and forth with it. But for the main functionality, which is adding an email, okay, it works. I can add a new email, and I can save it here from the inline. And if I want to edit an email, I can do it also directly from here. If I want to delete it, I can also delete it from here. So it got the main tasks that I gave to it right, and created this first variant. It should also have done the second variant by now. Yes. Okay. So let me check the second variant while it creates the third one. Let me see how it did it differently here. This is variant B. Uh, oh yeah, okay, this is even different. And this is good because we want to test three different layouts and want to get the goal of the test eventually is to get the best version out of the three layouts. This one is a side panel. I can add contacts, like, I don't know. And the beauty is, yes, everything is working interactive. I can select everything every day, weekdays, weekends. It's so pretty, much better than I would have done in Figma, to be honest. And I can save that. And if I also want to delete, yeah, okay. So I basically click on the email itself, and I can delete from here, or I can edit the other information. So yeah, that's the second variant it came up with. It didn't follow specifically the design system instructions. I think it's because I told it to move fast for the demo, but I think it's usually able to do a much better job. Now let's see if it is done with the third variant. Yep, okay, all three variants are built, deploying to Vercel now. So while it deploys to Vercel, let me quickly check what the third variant looks like. Yeah, okay, it's a little bit even different. Yeah, wow, this is very different even. Adding a new contact basically opens this huge card, and I can delete the contact. I can also edit like certain things in the other contacts that I have. And it also took out the daily notification send time and sort of made the copy more crisp and explained like, oh, this is batching of emails at the same time. So it even fixed some of the other usability issues that were in the original screenshots that I gave. It did all of that just from screenshots. Right. So hopefully now all three variants are live on Vercel. Perfect. And it has the links to those three variants. Now we're moving into step three, which is super exciting, allowing Claude to create the Useberry test. So in the past, I would open Useberry, I would create the test myself, create all the blocks, and even like before creating the test, I would go to my PM, talk to them, go to my X researcher, talk to them, try to get a script, try to understand which type of test is better for this kind of feature, and so on, which took a lot of time, right? In companies traditionally with limited resources, they don't really have that and much time, and they don't have that much resources. So as a designer, I need to move a little bit faster. And so basically, I'm going to be dealing with Claude as if it is my PM and my UX researcher at the moment, and asking it to set the usability test. So I also pre-created the prompt here, asking it to create it on Useberry, and I already have Chrome connected, so it's going to access Useberry from Chrome. I have the Useberry project open, again, talking about the speed because of the demo. And I basically give it like what I need from it, right? I needed to create a test with this flow and create and recruit via Prolific, via Useberry, 10 participants, desktop only. And I'm giving you just a bit of more context, right, to work with. So with that being said, let me copy the third prompt. And you can also give it instructions to not launch the test, right? You don't want it to just go ahead, full steam ahead. You can ask it to slow down a little bit because I would like to review whatever it created. And let's give it that prompt. And what should happen now is it should open up Chrome. It should start creating the test in Chrome right in front of my eyes. And it should double check everything while it's testing. So yeah, it has Chrome open right here. It opened it in a different window. Right. So yeah, now it's accessing our team basically on Chrome. It's accessing the project. Hopefully, it will navigate to the proper workspace. I did give it instructions to go to the proper workspace. Yep, here we go. Went to the proper workspace. Oh, and my hands are up here. I'm not clicking on anything. I'm just checking what it's doing. Um, and it should now click on new project. Let me also check quickly what is it saying. Yeah, it found the project. Let me create a new project, and it had like a to-do list now. So it's gonna set up the project, set up the three variants. Oh, okay. Switch back to Chrome. Yeah, so now it create a new project and is doing all of that and is starting to understand a little bit more of the layout of Useberry itself. And I think we're all familiar also with how Useberry works in this case. Is gonna start tackling the things that I told. The ideal scenario is at the end of this, I'm expecting Claude to have created a new project with a proper name, came up with the test scenario itself. So, understanding what the flow is, creating three different steps in the test so that the panelist will have to go through the three prototypes that we created. And the idea is that I want to pick one winner, right, from the three variants. And that one winner, I'm gonna basically move forward with it and also understand why the participants have picked that winner. And as you can see here, it's starting already to write the title of the test and start writing the description, and then it's going to move on to creating the actual blocks of the test. So it's so fun to watch it work in Chrome. Um, and it's making like my life a little bit easier because I would have basically done all of that manually myself, but now I can just give Claude the instructions and it would go and check. So in this step, I think it's also checking what available blocks are there and selecting which block it should choose. So let me check exactly what is thinking in the behind the scenes. um, yeah, so it sees like the blocks. It's choosing the question block. Oh, it's reversing me back to Chrome. Okay. But basically, it's also nice to have like having them in multiple screens just to understand like what is it doing, and you can stop Claude at any moment and ask it, yeah, this is not good, and it can stop and it can continue based on your instructions again. But in this case, we're just gonna trust what it does, and it's right now basically creating the first block which filters people out, right. I want to have users who are testing this platform um, like I want to understand how many times they use online dashboards for portals for work, for example. Is it daily, is it monthly, etc., etc. So it's going actually and creating this multiple choice block so that we can understand also what kind of quality we're getting out of the test itself, and what kind of quality we're getting out of the users. Right. So it's going to take a couple of minutes, I think. And once it starts creating the first block for the actual test and adding the Versa links, I'm going to also try to explain a little bit more what it's doing. So for now, let's enjoy and see what it does. And again, my hands are up here. I'm not touching anything. What it does until we reach that block. Okay, so I see now that it started. It basically created the questions block, which is the first block that will filter out the people. So, for example, I can now understand like if the panelist that tested this has some experience with dashboards already. You can tailor custom this context block, of course, from Useberry, and also tell Claude to contextually create these context blocks based on what type of user you have. If you are not a B2B company or a B2C company, right? You have personas for different kinds of users. So you can ask it to custom tailor that. But since now it's done, it is basically, oh, okay, now it's moving fast, is creating the first variant. So it created an open analytics block, which is the block where you can add basically either prototypes or websites, right? And in this case, it's going here because it has the Versal preview links of the prototypes that we created, and it will contextually add each link into the block. So it does that automatically because, as I said, like I already connected it to Versal before, so it knows how to grab those links from Versal and everything. It would require a little bit of setting up to do for first timers, but it's a super simple process. And if you ever get stuck with anything, you have the best assistant in the world, which is Claude. You can ask it to help you. So what it's doing now, it's actually adding the variant A link and choosing what kind of viewport. I already told it that we are desktop focused, so we're going to be focusing on desktop only. So hopefully it will choose the proper device viewport so that the panelists, when they are testing that, they have the best experience they can. It should also repeat the same process for the other two variants. So right now, basically, it is checking what to do, and it's even like exploring certain things that I might take time to research. Like I would need to first understand like what a proxy server is, but since Cloud already contextually understands these things, it can basically choose what's the best option is. Let me also check what it's actually saying. I hope it's not like stuck somewhere. Yeah, it's still wibbling, and it shows the proxy server. Okay, so you can also read like whatever it's doing step by step, just to double check if it actually chose the right thing. At this moment, I'm trusting it and I'm giving it bypass permission and I'm giving it full access to do whatever it wants. And this is what I usually do. But in the future, you can, of course, stop it and ask it stuff. Right. So it added the first open analytics block, right? And it added the link and it went to Versal, grabbed it, chose the device viewport, and basically now it's writing the task for the panelist. It's writing the title and the instructions. Sometimes it overdoes the instructions and it overdoes explain, like it over explains things to the panelists, and it's also might be a good time for you to double check what it's going to write before it writes it. But in this case, for example, it actually underwrote, so it should have wrote a little bit more context to the test panelists. But as I said, like you can basically stop it at any moment, ask it to change anything you want, and you can even like test the do the test yourself after it's done and come back to it with feedback points. And this is also something that I did before, and give those feedback points to it in the Cloud window and ask it, please fix the test based on my feedback points before we actually commit to launching it to users, which is the normal process that I would have done with my PM and UX researcher and other designers in the company, just to sanity check everything. But in this case, I'm the one who's sanity checking the work that Claude is doing, right? Yeah, so it's actually now done with adding the first prototype and adding the open analytics link and adding the task. And now is going to move on to the questions block. The questions block is basically the area where we will start asking the users if they were able to actually find the tasks that we are giving them. In this case, we want them to add a new email, edit a new email, edit an old email, and delete an old email, right? So it understands contextually that these are the things that we want to test, and it's going to write the question based on that. So yeah, here we go. Which tasks were you able to find in design A? Select all that apply. So it even knows that it's not going to be like a one selection. I might have done the add and edit, but not the delete, right? So it understands that these are going to be checkboxes and not like radio buttons, right? So multiple choices. Good. Okay, so let's wait a bit now for it to finish the first prototype blocks. And what should happen after is basically is gonna repeat the same process for the second block and the third block. And at the end, it will have a final question, right? Like which one did you prefer, and why? And this is the most important part because we get to capture a lot of feedback from there, and analyze which version won essentially. So Yeah, let's wait for it to basically finish creating the rest of the blocks. All right. So I think it's done with the first block for the first prototype. Um, and now it's doing the second block. For the demo purposes, it might feel a little bit, it's taking a little bit of time. But remember, it created, it like, it analyzed feedback and it created a PRD and it created three design directions all in like 10 minutes. And now it's doing the useberry test all by itself and also maybe like 10-15 minutes, which can be in the same time if you are fast enough in using useberry and fast enough in creating certain tests and so on. But it can take, like me, for example, more time to do this manually than it's doing. So I think the time benefits when it comes to using this AI first workflow can be massive. And also, it will only get better. So we are dealing with sort of the first iteration of these kinds of models. And in the future, once these models become even more powerful and even faster and consume less tokens, hopefully, because they are getting a bit expensive at the moment. And also, when there are new established patterns for testing, we can basically see even faster ways to create usability testing, create designs, create feedback loops, and all of that in the future. So yeah, now it's basically grabbing the second Versal preview link for the second prototype and adding it to the test, and I think is going to repeat the same process by adding the link and adding the questions, and then moving on to the third part, which is the third block. And after it's done with the third block, it's going to add also like the final question. So let's wait for it until it is done. But also before we do that, while it's working, I want to also explain a little bit more about the unpredictable nature of AI. So sometimes you might find the results of creating tests a little bit different between each test and so on. And this is due to like how unpredictable certain AI patterns are right now. So you can give Claude the same prompt on the same project twice, and it might produce different results. And this is why it's very important for now more than ever as designers to ensure like the quality of whatever solution is coming out of it, and ensure that it actually writes the proper tests, understands who's it going to be testing with, etc., and just review whatever it's doing, right? And as I said, like the beauty of it is you can ask it to fix things. So even if it's not as to your liking, you can still ask it to fix things. And yeah, this is something that all of the industry basically is trying to understand how to limit this unpredictable nature of using these new AI tools. But I think also with time, with the more powerful these tools have are going to become, we're going to see a lot of improvement in that aspect as well. Right. So now let's wait for it to create the rest of the test, and yeah, let's see how it does. All right, so now I see that it moved to this third variant, and also starting to replicate the same process as it did in the first and the second set of blocks, creating the context screen, the open analytics screen, grabbing the link, adding it, and then creating the questions. It's doing things a little bit slower now, and I can explain why. If I go back to Claude, and I hope it lets me do that, basically every step it's taking, it's going back to Chrome and verifying if that actually worked. So um, it takes a lot of screenshots from Chrome. Of course, those screenshots only are saved in this cloud environment. They're not like shared anywhere else in case of any security concerns. But basically, what it's doing is everything it clicks on in Chrome, it needs to double check. So it says like, okay, I clicked on, okay, no, it's, yeah, I clicked on this. So it grabs a screenshot and verifies if it did the right thing, if the thing that it clicked on actually worked. And it's doing that for every step, right? This is why it's kind of taking a little bit longer when it comes to tasks that it's doing in Chrome. Um, but yeah, eventually I think also this will be done much faster as the models improve, as more MCP bridges are built for Claude to use. So it doesn't really have to access a lot of things through Chrome anymore. It can just connect directly to Useberry, or it can connect directly to Figma, for example, which is the most important thing that it's doing right now, is connecting it to Figma through that MCP. And when the Figma MCP launched, or not launched, like basically started to gain traction with the new AI tools, it wasn't very good. But Figma, over the past couple of weeks, have improved this MCP dramatically to allow Claude to basically grab a lot of things from it properly and rebuild those things back into Figma. So what does this mean for user testing? So in the future, very, very near future, you can even like take the prototypes that we created from HTML, pull them back to Figma, and you can do this right now, and it works. And you can test also through Figma. So you don't even need to test through like a Versal hosting preview link. You can just grab the Figma stuff, put it back into Useberry. So this gives you a lot of flexibility, right? The first part of that flexibility is you can test with prototypes and websites. And luckily, Useberry basically supports both. So you have more control now over how to test. But the main core workflow, the AI workflow, is going to be basically interchangeable between whatever tool you want to use. Do you want to show a proper developed website, or do you want to show a prototype of that on Figma? Which is great. So yeah, let's wait now for it to finish the third task. And hopefully, once it's done, we will be able to check like the final step, which is the questions it will ask to the panelists on what they preferred and what they didn't. Okay, I think we are now done with the third set of blocks for the third variant. Again, it took a bit of time because it was everything it was doing in Chrome. It had to take a screenshot, check if it did it correctly, and so on. So hopefully, this workflow will get even more faster in the future with newer models. And there's also something called fast mode for Claude, which can do things 3 times faster. But yeah, I don't recommend it because it's super expensive at the moment. So hopefully it will be able to do things a lot faster in the future. But now, basically, what it is doing is creating the final block or final set of blocks, which ask the user or the panelists which design did they prefer overall, and adding certain options. Hopefully, also it will understand that we need a second block to ask why they preferred like these options, because we want to capture the best sort of test result that we can in order to analyze all of that, right? Um, So yeah, once it is done, I'm going to also talk a bit more about what I'm going to be showing in the next step. Um, it should also start hiring the panelists. So it should open the panelists tab in Useberry and start looking at the attributes of the panelists and start matching them with the user persona we have. So the more you teach Claude about your users and the personas they have, the much better it performs at these kinds of tasks, right? Um, some companies might not have all the personas ready, or maybe they have overcomplicated personas or undercomplicated personas. And this is also where it's very useful to validate those personas with user testing to ensure that okay, we are creating basically a list of panelists that match this persona, and we tested with them a few designs, and we saw that maybe like this type of persona is something that we need to do more work on in the product, right, to tailor the product to them, or maybe we can deprioritize certain personas. So it's super cool to be able now to do more tests and do more synthesizing of results, and it eventually will lead to creating better products, and this is what we all basically want to do, whether it's products that are purely B2B SaaS or products that people are using every day in the millions of people, right? So yeah, I think that's also something that's very powerful. Now back to Claude, what it's doing right now, it is wrapping up the test, is creating the final set of questions. So it added the first question, which is like which variant did you prefer overall? And now is going to the second question, which I hope is going to understand that it's more of an open-ended question. And yeah, here we go, short text, and asking them like why did they prefer this kind of variant, like which variant did they prefer and why. So let's wait for it. I think it's going to take like maybe a few more minutes, like just to wrap up the test, and then we can continue with that. All right, so I think it's finally reaching the final block. And again, yeah, you can basically give it the prompt, and it will start creating the test in the background. Sometimes it does it faster, sometimes it does it slower. And in the meantime, you can dedicate more time for yourself to work on other things, or maybe like scroll TikToks if you prefer to do that. But the idea is, again, to recap what it just did, it created the entire Useberry test in what felt like maybe 20 minutes on its own, right? And at any point, you can also ask it to modify um, certain things. So now it's trying to go into something else. Let me check if it actually is understanding where it should be going to next. But the idea is now it should start hiring the panelists. Sometimes it does miss clicks here and there. Yeah, so okay, see, it understood that it clicked on the wrong section, but it needs to basically continue with the sharing and settings section. You can also help it a little bit more if you want. But yeah, basically, let's see how it does. Yeah, okay, so now it's back to the test and it should start. I think it's having an issue with the Useberry sidebar here. Maybe it's not understanding fully that it closes and collapses properly. But let's see. And as I said, like it's going always back to it's taking a screenshot and going back to Chrome to understand like if it clicked on something properly or not. Hopefully, it now can click on the start testing button and then move on to the next step, which is hiring the panelists. Oh, okay, it didn't do that. Okay, let me help it a little bit here to save some time. I'm going to click on the start test button and yeah, redirect it back to the next step. Yeah, as I said, like the nature of these tools right now is a bit experimental, so it wouldn't hurt to help it a little bit sometimes, and even taking over and even stopping it and allowing it to, uh, recalibrate and so on. And the other thing is, yeah, still wanting to do the results. Let me check if it's actually clicking on the right thing. And if it's not, okay, so yeah, it kind of failed a little bit at the end there. So it's gonna stop and tell me like the core test is built and the status, and I can basically ask it again to, I can help it to open the recruitment panel and ask it to look into it. So let me do that. Actually, let me go and prepare that for it. Start testing and just recruit via pool. And yeah, it basically giving me a whole recap of what it did in the last 25 minutes. It built the entire test using the prototypes, and it did everything there, and it's basically telling me that what I need to manually do. I'm gonna tell it now. I open the recruitment panel for you. Can you proceed? Because I want to show like something that's super cool, which is also very important and sometimes can be time consuming, which is hiring the panelists. Um, it's a long list of features in the panel, in the participants attributes. So it does really help sometimes to um, like understand like give it more context and helping me to pick the right panelists. So now it finally saw the proper screen. It had a little bit of a difficulty navigating useberry there, but now I think it should be understanding that now. Yes, okay, it's continuing in the right direction. And I did specifically ask it to enable the video shoots because I do want to also ensure that I watch the recordings of the test of the panelists and come up with other notes, right? So I will ask Claude, for example, to do two things, right? When the results come in, they're going to be coming in into two formats. The first format is the results page, very nicely broken down, understanding, first of all, which variant won, why it won. I'm going to be able to capture the like the reasons and so on, and it's going to give me percentages. So this is all very quantitative, and I can ask Claude to basically go back and analyze all of that. But also, what I want to ensure is I want to watch the recordings because I can also pick up on certain things that Claude might not have been able to pick up on, like certain things, like for example, if the panelist is clicking on the wrong thing, and if they're taking so much time in in a certain step or something like that, I can pick up on those cues as a human watching another human, um, and then summarize all of that and give it back to Claude. And I can give it like those two things and ask it to basically improve the result. So I'm going to also show like what I did in a previous project with this and how I managed eventually to um, do everything, test, and come up with a winner, and improve the winner with for a final version to have it ready for internal stakeholder and alignment. And yeah, this is basically the idea. Right now, what it's doing is it's basically creating the panelists um, details, like the audience name, the title, and the description. And it should go now to the next step, which is uh, yeah, it's also adding the device type and the time required, which are something that are things that I told it to also take care of. We're testing with desktop. The time required for this, I also asked it to estimate it based on the test itself. So that's another thing. Sometimes I don't know how long the test is going to take, and I can ask Claude to just add like a basically dummy estimation for the time required. Right. Let's wait for it now a little bit until it goes to the second screen, which is the participants. All right, here we go. Now it went to the second step. It had a little bit of a hiccup there. Second step is now is going to check the list of participants on the left here. Basically, search for certain attributes that match the criteria that it came up with for the personas, and it's also going to add like how many participants do we need, so that it can continue with the test and then continue with the summary. So let's check what it's thinking now. Now it understood that, okay, I'm on the second screen and is basically thinking in the background, what are the best attributes and filter options from the left that it should check, and then it can basically select them and then have a group of panelists that are very much user fit for this specific test and capture the best results that it needs. Right, so now it's back to Chrome. It understood that it needs 10 participants, and it should now start scrolling down the list of attributes on the left and start adding these attributes. Let's check also what it's thinking in the background right here. Right, so now is thinking of using the search in the attributes panel itself. It's trying to understand also what kind of attributes that it's going to search for from that panel. So that, yeah, for example, it's searching for certain types of employment for that test. So it decided that someone who's going to be testing like this type of product needs to be employed in a certain way. So it's basically going to start adding these attributes one by one. So yeah, let's wait for it until it's done with adding the panelists, and then we can move on to the final part of this webinar. Okay, so now it's done selecting the attributes of the panelists. It didn't do like the best job, I would say, during this demo. Maybe it would also have required a bit of more context on which kind of personas we have. So as I said, like the better personas you feed it, the much better it will do its job. So in this case, maybe it only understood that it needs to find employed people for this test. But the magic of this part is it can look at the attributes panel, it can match it to whatever it's thinking, and then choose the attributes based on that. Right, I think now Claude is done with the test itself. I told it specifically to stop before launching, so it didn't launch, so that I can, like in the traditional um, I would say the traditional way of doing things, and you can see here also the audience have been created as a draft. I would basically preview the test myself, understand if everything is working, etc., etc. I'm not going to do that extensively here right now, but I just want to check if it actually did everything correctly. Yes, okay. So it did get everything correctly. Sometimes I would change this give up button to move to the second step, and I can also give it that instruction. But basically, yeah, it kind of created the entire test, and I can just preview it. Right. So now I'm going to show you like an example of one of the tests I did in the same way, also on the same feature, and how I managed to make Claude basically grab the results page. So this is a test that was fully finished, and this is the results that we managed to capture from. We had like the same number of people, we have completion rates, we have user sessions, total study time, etc., etc. And I can basically understand, and like in the final question, which of the variants won, which is I think is this one. Yeah. So in this test, specifically designed to one, and users have basically communicated, or the panelists have communicated why. Most easy navigation, it's more nice, and some have even explained a little bit more why everything they chose was that way. And also, as I said, like I can just open the videos and I can just check myself how certain patterns have emerged by watching the videos. And again, this is the beauty of Useberry, is that I can combine all of that. I can easily click on this share result button and just copy the link and give it back to Claude and ask it to analyze it. For the purposes of this demo, let's assume this process has already been done. But what I would do eventually is ask it to analyze everything, and it would basically come back to me with something that looks like this, right? Let me just zoom in here. Right, so it basically crunches all of the results, and this is a message I already copied from another session in Claude. Understood like everything, like why these ones, who choose like the second variant, time they spent, how many clicks, etc. So it understood contextually all the data that it could pull from the results page itself, and understand the qualitative feedback, why it's the most easy to navigate, why is it the prefer option for some of the users and some of the panelists. And it basically generates the entire report, right? And I can then basically take that report and feed it back to Claude itself in order to create a final solution that I am happy with. And then I can show it to my internal stakeholders. So let me show you, like, for that example, what the final solution looked like. Let me just try to quickly find it here. And yes. Right. Yes. Okay, here it is. Okay, now continuing. All right. So I think this is the final version that I personally preferred. After working with it and making sure that everything is, for example, design system aligned, and I chose like to add the contact as like a sheet, like a pop-up model here. I could choose the days, etc., etc. I could choose the time and so on, and I can add, oh, let me just add a demo at demo.com contact here, and then it would add that contact to the top here. And I can also edit it from the same way. I can click on this edit button and I can edit the contact, uh, and I can change like certain attributes in it. And I can also delete that contact. I found that this is what I was able to deduct from the test, what the users have suggested, what the users have preferred, and I was able to also make a decision on that. So I could also have gone completely with whatever Claude suggests, but I want to take control at this step to make sure that it works, because I also have good understanding of our users, I have good understanding of our design system, and I have good understanding of our stakeholders. So I wanted to make sure that I present something that is useful for everybody. And I also created this entire final version with Claude as well. And I was able to hand it off to the engineers as a sort of a plug and play front end. So I even cut the time of development. Now engineers don't really need to open like a new Figma and like recreate the design one by one. Actually, now it works. Like it's a functional HTML prototype, right? And it works fantastic. Good. So let me just finally find my notes here to recap the key takeaways. Right. What we did today. I showed how AI can be a design multiplier, how it can make your workflow much faster. At this session, we managed to crunch feedback, generate a PRD, very detailed PRD, understand the pros and cons of everything, generate 3 design variants, um, and also develop those 3 design variants. These steps took days before we managed to do it in one session. And then we managed to do the cool thing, which is we managed to test or create the test essentially for those 3 variants on Useberry. And the test itself is a higher quality test than it would have been in a Figma prototype, because it's a more interactive version of a product that then the panelists can play with. And when I tested this flow in real life, I also pushed and launched the test, and like in 20 minutes, I managed to have every panelist back with their results, and I continued from there. And maybe it took me like, let's say, 30 more minutes or an hour more just to wrap up this entire task. So time to time, start to finish, maybe an hour or two. That would have taken days. And I feel like this new workflow is something that can supercharge massively how we work as designers. And yeah, it's something that I think is super cool. So yeah, with that being said, uh, I now can hand it over back to Nicole, and then yeah, I hope it's been useful for everybody.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mohammed. That was really insightful. I think what stands out is how fast you can move when you combine AI with real user validation, not just generating ideas, but actually testing and learning from them quickly. And hopefully, yeah, this gave everyone a clear picture of how you can start applying a similar workflow in your own process. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. And if you want to explore more or test in your own ideas, you can head over to useberry.com. Bye.